David. Thank you so much. I just want to double check. You can see my screen,
I
correct?
can. Yep.
Okay, great. All right. Thank you so much for, that presentation. And as a former government employee, I wish I had this presentation. And so I really appreciate the work that you're doing in terms of helping people not only to think about how they want to retire financially, but what they want to do next. So I'm really grateful to be part of this conversation. So okay, there we go. So for my side of the presentation, I want to take the conversation a little bit more deeper, and I want to focus on helping you find purpose beyond government. So I'll share first why I believe retirement can be one of the most meaningful chapters of your life. And then I'll guide you on how you can start to discover your purpose beyond the work that you're doing right now. And then at the end, I'm going to share the three common myths about retirement that I feel like nobody talks about, and how you can make that transition into retirement a little bit easier by having a plan. So, for those of you that don't know me, my name is Nandi. I'm a coach, a facilitator, a teacher, but I feel like the title that best describes me is I'm a purpose provocateur. I am very passionate about helping people overcome their inner resistance that keeps them from sharing their gifts and their passion with the world. But before I started my business, I was one of you. I spent 25 years in USDA, and I joined the agency probably for the same reason why you probably joined the federal government, for financial security, but I also wanted to make a difference. And in fact, in 2015, I moved to the DC area because I wanted to be closer to the action. I wanted to be where important decisions were being made. As a visionary and as a creative person, I thought I could bring my gifts to help the organization that I was working for to be better, to serve their constituents better. But over time, I found myself doing work in a system that were constantly resisting change. And that tension took a toll on my mental health and my physical body. And eventually I burn out. And that burnout led to two major health crises. So after the second one, I had to take a pause and I started asking myself, who am I outside of my government role? Because what I noticed was I was attached to my work identity. So some people call this the midlife crisis, but I like to think about it more so like a midlife awakening, because I was waking up to the fact that the work that I was doing in the government as a program manager at the time was so out of alignment with who I was fundamentally. So the challenge that I had though at that time was I didn't know what I wanted to do next. So the first thing that I did was I hired a coach, and honestly, it was the best decision that I made. She didn't give me the answers, she didn't tell me what to do, but what she did offer me was a supportive space for me to explore who I was outside of my career. And part of that was giving myself the permission to say yes to the things that excited me, that was calling to me, even though I had no idea where it was going to lead to next. So my curiosity took me on this 5 year self-discovery journey where I started spending time in nature and practicing yoga and meditation and doing a whole bunch of woo stuff that I never done before, but it was nurturing my creative spirit. I also spend time in communities with like-hearted people, like-minded people that were using their gifts, using their passions to create a change in their communities in their own little way. And along the way, on my self-discovery journey, I found my passions, and my passions were connected to guiding and coaching and teaching others. And at the time, there was a huge part of me that wanted to leave government and start, doing business and doing the work that I enjoyed. But I wasn't quite ready to leave government at the time. And nor did I wanted to wait for retirement to start living that chapter. So what I decided to do instead was to first start integrating my passions into my program management work that I was already doing. And eventually, fortunate for me, I was recruited into a new role where I served as a program consultant internally with the organization I was with. And it gave me the opportunity to guide and coach executives and managers as well as their teams. And on my off days and in the evenings, I built my business. So I would teach yoga and meditation, guide people on hikes, and also coach career professionals on the side. So when the 2025 shift happened in government, the big shakeup that we all experienced, and I had the opportunity to retire early, it was an easy yes for me because I knew what I wanted to do next. And I already started taking the steps to build my next chapter. Now, I'll be honest, running a business, it is a lot of work. And I think David would agree with that. But I
Yep.
feel like I'm finally doing work that is meaningful, is fulfilling, and it's making a difference in people's lives. So I share this story, or I share my story to show you what is possible, because I believe that retirement, it is not the end of your career. It is the beginning of your next chapter. And I'll be bold to say I think it can be the best chapter of your life. But that's if you consciously decide what you want that season of your life to look like. And this is part of the reason why, David and I wanted to have this conversation, because we want to reshape the narrative around retirement. Because retirement can be that opportunity for you to reconnect to your dreams, maybe things that you've pushed on the back burner, the things that make you come alive, that make you excited, the things that align with who you are fundamentally. And it's also an opportunity to leave a legacy, not just a financial one, but an impactful one. In other words, how do you want to use your gifts, your talents, your work experience, your lived experience to leave your mark on this world, leave this world a little bit better than how you found it? So one of the common, statements that I hear from people when I talk about purpose, when I do workshops like this, is like, okay, Nandi, all of this sounds great, but I have no idea where I want to start with or what I want to pivot to next. And I get it. I was right there with you. And that's part of the reason why I share my story, because it took me 5 years to figure out what I wanted to do next. But I do think there are two reasons why people also struggle with this concept of like what they want to do right now. And first, a lot of it stems around the fact that we've been conditioned and groomed to prioritize what's logical, what's practical, what's going to give us that sense of financial security. And there's nothing wrong with any of that, but when we only prioritize those things, then we start to lose sight of the other things that brings us joy, that excites us, that feels more in alignment with who we are. And then the second reason is that we tend to confuse purpose with a job title, like director or manager and inspector. But the invitation here is to think less about the title and focus more so on the role you want to play in your next chapter. And I'll be honest, again, it will take some time to discover what that role is. But once you discover it, then it helps your transition into retirement a little bit more easier. So I want to pause here just for a second, and I want us to do a short exercise so you can start your discovery process now. And so what we're going to do is explore what role is calling to you right now. And so I'm going to invite you to grab a pen and a paper, and you're going to divide your paper in half, and on the left side, I would like for you to write the word gifts. And on the right side, I would like for you to write the word passions. So we're going to start with the gift side first. And so I'm going to invite you to write down, what do you think your gifts are? And I know sometimes that's a struggle for folks to think about what their gifts are. So maybe you can think about the things that you enjoy doing, or maybe the things that comes natural for you, but it's a struggle for others. What do people naturally come to you, to do all the time? So I'll give you a few seconds with that. And then on the right side, I want you to think about your passions. And the way we can look at passions, we can think about the things that excites you, the things that you do or activities that you do that causes you to lose track of time. Maybe it's that thing that you talk about all the time when you meet someone new, or maybe when you're talking with your friends or family. Or maybe think about the things that energizes you rather than drains you. And then what I'm going to do now is ask you to look at your list and see if you notice any commonalities, if you notice any themes or patterns. And maybe you do, maybe you don't, which way is perfectly okay. And if nothing comes up for you right now, it's okay. You'll have some more, I'll share some resources with you to support your discovery journey. So now I want to share with you this diagram that I tend to use for these kind of talks. It comes from the social change ecosystem framework. And the idea here is that each and every one of us can play a supportive role in a cause, whether that's a cause connected with your family or your community or society, or maybe some sort of social issue. And we can use this framework to kind of give us some clues as to what role we enjoy playing. So as you look at this list, I want you to identify maybe one or two roles that aligns with you, maybe aligns with your gifts, maybe your passions, maybe part of your work that you enjoy right now. So like for example, if you're someone that enjoy bringing people together, right? Or maybe people come to you for that, you might be a weaver. If you're someone that loves to be in the crisis modes and help people navigate crisis, you might be a frontline responder. Or if you enjoy, being a counsel or a mentor to someone, you might be a guide. Or maybe you might be someone that enjoys being there for others, supporting others. Like I have a client of mine, she's pivoting from government and she's going into more of a holistic healer position where she's supporting women through their postpartum experience. So she's in between a caregiver and a healer. Or another friend of mine who used to work for government and now he's helping people, tell their stories, and he's telling his own story. So he's a storyteller. Or maybe you might be someone that love to buck the system. That's me. You like to push the envelope, push the status quo. So you might be a disruptor. Right now, I'm working with a client of mine, and she's in academia, and she's building her next chapter by creating art that highlights certain social issues. So just take a moment and see which roles call to you. And again, if nothing comes up, don't worry. I got you. I have some resources for you to help you even more. So we'll circle back to that exercise, but for now, I want to pivot to the three myths about retirement that many people overlook or they don't even talk about. And this list was generated through my many conversations with some of my former colleagues from my previous workshops. And one of the things that I noticed is that many people who didn't have a plan, they struggle a lot with retirement. A lot of them waited till retirement to think about what they wanted to do next. And so I noticed this pattern about how people was perceiving retirement, and I want to share them with you now so that way you can see why David and I are encouraging you to start building your next chapter sooner rather than later. So the first myth is when I retire, I'll be free from my old role. And yes, that is true. You will no longer be in that position anymore. But what a lot of people don't realize is that when you retire, it can also bring up a sense of loss. And that loss is a loss of an identity. So I can remember a few years ago, I ran into one of my colleagues and she had retired, at the time. And I asked her, like, hey, how's retirement going? And she was like, Nandy, I am so miserable. She went from being this go-to person for senior leaders, where she was helping them to make important decisions. And now she felt like she lost a sense of purpose. She's nobody. And I could really sense and feel the grief she was carrying over the loss of that identity. So I want you to think about your life right now, right? Many of you have spent 10, 20, 30 years, maybe even 40 years building an identity within the job that you're in right now. Maybe people come to you for something. Maybe it might be your expertise, maybe your leadership, maybe to make important decisions. And when you no longer are playing that role, you will feel like a sense of loss. So this is why it's important to start building an identity outside of the work that you're doing, so that way it can help with that transition to your retirement years. Now, the second myth is when I retire, I'll have all the time in the world. And yes, that is true. You will have more time. But time without any structure is going to feel very disorienting. So again, I want you to think about your life right now. Right now, you wake up at a certain time. You drive to work at a certain time. Maybe you attend certain meetings throughout the day, you work on your projects at a certain time of the day, you take lunch at a certain time, you wrap up your day, you drive back home. Whether you like it or not, you have a structure. Your career has provided you that structure. So when retirement comes and you no longer have that job, all of a sudden that structure disappears. And again, it can feel very disorienting. It can feel like a sense of loss. And this is where you see people rush into something or anything to fill their time. And a lot of time it feels like very unfulfilling things that they're doing. So again, this is why it's so important to not only plan, but to start building now, how you want, what you want to do in retirement. So that way, when you are in retirement, you have something to build your time around. So then the third myth here is when I retire, I'll be finally free, right? And I'm sure many of you have said this in the past, or maybe even right now. And maybe you will feel free, but if there's not a purpose to anchor to, your retirement years will feel very empty, because purpose is what gives you a reason to wake up in the morning beyond that paycheck. And again, not to sound like a broken record, this is why it's so important to start planning now so you have something to look forward to when you retire. So let's circle back to that exercise that we did earlier and that role or roles you identified. I want you to ask yourself, how could you start embodying that role today? Even if it's in a small little way. Maybe you start where you are with the current position you're in, just like what I started with. Maybe you volunteer for a cause, or maybe you mentor others, or maybe you start your side hustle or your side project, that thing that you keep pushing on the back burner. or maybe you join a community beyond the work that you're doing right now, or maybe you build your own community. So for maybe for many of you, this presentation might have sparked some excitement, or maybe it brought up more questions. And either which way, all of that is perfectly okay, and that's normal. So, to help you on your journey, I do want to share a couple free resources for you. So, the first one is I'm offering a free 60-minute visioning session where you can take some time to explore what is calling to you now and maybe think about what sort of impact you want to make, in your retirement years. So again, this is completely free, no sales pitch. This is just my way of giving back to federal employees. Secondly, if you want to go deeper with the exercise we did, or maybe you didn't get a response right away, maybe it was too quick for you, you can take a 5-minute quiz. It's a purpose profile quiz to help you figure out your purpose role that you would like to play now and maybe even in your retirement years. And so what I'll do is email you back your top 3 purpose roles. And then lastly, if you're someone who's like, you know what, Nandy, I am ready to build my next chapter. Where do I go next? Well, I would love to invite you to join my free community. It's called Brew and Bloom. And it's for people like you, who have a 9 to 5 job and you're ready to start building your next chapter now. So you can go ahead and scan the QR code. I know the links to the resources will also be in the description box below. So, in closing, I do want to share with you, if anything, just remember to, start slow, be curious, and just enjoy the journey.